This is CTV's W5. Here is Lloyd Robertson.
Welcome to W5. The Toronto Community Housing Corporation. It's Canada's biggest landlord, providing housing to 160,000 low and moderate income residents, and now chosen by Maclean's magazine as one of this country's top 100 employers for 2009. The corporation scored high points for its generous financial and benefits packages and was also praised for its work atmosphere, where employees are allowed to listen to music while they work and also to enjoy the many cultural and social events that are arranged by the social committee. Well, it may be a good place to work, but what about life for those tenants who live in the corporation's buildings? Critics claim that the corporation is doing too little to protect their health and safety. And as Victor Malarick discovers in this investigation, there are some who are living in conditions that can only be described as housing hell.
A man named George Hallam lived and died here, alone, in this one-bedroom apartment. An apartment in this building owned by the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. His body lay undiscovered for days. Known to neighbors as Dirty George, he suffered from serious mental health issues. Unable to care for himself, he was basically left to rot in a pile of human filth. An apartment infested with cockroaches and bedbugs. All that was left of his 62 years was a smattering of old photos. Like this wedding picture, taken 22 years ago in happier times before his wife left him, and hanging out with his faithful companion, Scooby-Doo.
This is George's apartment?
This is George's apartment.
Today, his friend Annie has come to say her final goodbye.
Welcome to Ontario Housing.
Oh my God. Where was George found?
On this couch.
On this couch here?
Yes.
How long was George lying here dead before he was found?
I would have to say at least 4 days. I know him, 3 or 4 at least.
The coroner ruled George died in January 2009 of natural causes.
When you hear people referring to George as Dirty George, how does that?
It hurts. I took him for a shave and a haircut. I got him to bath once or twice, but he had to be told to do these things. He didn't have the mentality to know better. If he got a letter, he'd run to me. I was the only source in life.
George Hallam died in his apartment building in downtown Toronto, and his death raises troubling questions about how anyone living in social housing could die in such solitary squalor. Like George, many of the more than 160,000 tenants of Toronto Community Housing suffer from mental health issues. There's also a large population of elderly and physically disabled people who are basically left to fend for themselves.
What does it say to you when a housing authority doesn't check on anybody and he could lie in this filth, in this apartment, for so long and nobody cares?
Please, God, forgive me, but they don't care. Housing does not care. They don't want to get involved.
Red flags did go up. Toronto Community Housing Corporation, otherwise known as TCHC, is required to conduct annual inspections of all its apartments, and its inspectors must have known just how dire George's situation was.
How in God's name do you unnotice this? Look at the cobwebs hanging just down on the guy's head. I mean, how does it happen?
Just up the road from where George died, another tenant with mental health issues living in deplorable conditions. And furniture and trash pile up outside the buildings.
Bedbugs, cockroaches, rats.
It's an all too familiar situation for Toronto lawyer Sarah Chartel. She's been helping tenants with disabilities and mental health issues that live in Toronto community housing.
They present themselves as if they are an ordinary landlord, and they're not. Now, fundamentally, it's not complicated to identify which clients you should at least be talking to.
Is Toronto Community Housing just a there to provide a shelter and nothing more?
Now, the problem in public housing is that we have stripped social housing of its social component.
Derek Ballantyne is the man in charge of Toronto Community Housing.
George Hallam lived in abject squalor. Your people had gone in and out of that apartment. They knew what his situation was. It sort of begs the question, does anybody knock on a door? Does anybody really care?
I don't think the tenants that we house have an expectation that the superintendent or the cleaner or the custodian is going to knock on their door every day. If any one of us has ever rented in our lives, we really enjoy and we respect the privacy that we get. We contract to have the use of that unit and not be interfered with. In the case of Mr. Hallam, we did take action. We, in fact, over the last period of time, brought his unit back to a pristine condition.
But when W5 visited the apartment, we saw no evidence of recent repairs, but signs of long-term neglect were everywhere.
We were in his apartment. That wasn't pristine.
It was in no way pristine, and that's the kind of degradation you get in an apartment like that in less than 6 months after it had been brought back to a very good standard.
The death of the man that they referred to as Dirty George, what does that say to you about Toronto Community Housing?
It says that this is an appalling system. We will never know whether the conditions in that apartment played a part in his death. But we do know that he died in squalor.
In the case of George Hallam, we did intervene. And if you were to look into his case carefully, you would know that he was well connected to support services, well connected to public health authorities, but refused those supports and refused that assistance. I don't think you can expect Toronto Community Housing as a landlord to replace public health authorities, social workers, hospital systems, medical systems, or family for that matter.
So those who have serious mental health issues or serious physical disabilities, you're basically just a landlord and other people have to connect with them.
I think I've been quite clear. We are a landlord to those people, and we put resources at their disposal to make sure that they have access to those services and the supports that are available in the community. We don't go knocking door to door to door and asking a person whether or not they're competent to live with us. As I've pointed out to you already, if they self-identify, a large number of people self-identify, we will make sure they're connected.
But therein lies the problem. With at least 10% of its tenants having mental health issues, does Toronto Community Housing have a moral responsibility to look after the health and safety of its tenants?
This housing provider has decided that their role is simply to be an ordinary for-profit slum landlord.
At 200 Wellesley Street, where George Hallam died, Toronto Housing has spent more than $9 million on improvements to the building.
The bugs are just dropping from the ceiling, landing on my face or landing on my arms or whatever.
For tenants like John Plew, that $9 million doesn't even begin to scratch the surface.
I've had 3 sprayings, 3 steamings, and they're still here.
He tries to keep his apartment tidy, but he's being overwhelmed by bed bugs.
My legs have been bitten like crazy. My arms have been bitten. Right now, I'm getting bites at the back of my neck and on the top of my shoulders. I took myself to a hospital one morning. They took a syringe of water, of hot water, and they stuck it in my ear. And they tilted my head to the side and they drained my ear. And into this little plastic tub fell a bed bug that was in my ear.